In 72 hours, you and your fellow players are members of the FEMA Region 9 Regional Response Coordination Staff. Your team will need to work together to stabilize a disaster within 72 hours per FEMA Administrator guidance. The overall objective is to put personnel and resources in place to save lives, protect property and the environment, and meet basic human needs within this critical time frame. The team will need to act quickly to establish its objectives and priorities to accomplish this task. The game is played with a minimum of 4 section leader players, but the section chiefs can include typical members from their sections as needed to fulfill their roles and responsibilities. In fact, players may find the pace of the game too fast to effectively play without additional key staff members. The minimum player positions are the Regional Response Coordination Staff Chief, the Situational Awareness Section Chief, the Planning Support Section Chief, the Resource Support Section Chief, and a Regional Response Coordination Staff support player is highly recommended. Players win by meeting their own objectives and developing a common operating picture that captures all the information presented. They develop regional response plans that meet team objectives, and all requests are recorded and executed on resource request forms. Also, all resources need to be ordered and tracked, and the costs must be fully accounted for and within the budget of $10 million per day or $30 million total. Players will lose if not enough commodities are delivered for the displaced population, not enough points of distribution are set up, FEMA has not established enough throughput at staging areas to deliver the resources, they haven't met their own objectives, or they basically haven't met the state's requests. Time tracking is provided through 2 elements. A 1-minute timer provides a cue for the situational assessment section to turn over a situation input card. A 10-minute timer to signal the turn in which a major action is required. The Chief of the Regional Response Coordination Center is the overall leader and approves the suggested resource requests and plans. The Chief may also assist all players in their required duties. The Chief sets the objectives. Every minute, the Situational Assessment Section Chief draws a situational input card. The players may immediately react on the input. The Resource Support Section Chief makes up to 3 resource requests for a maximum of $10 million per day over 8 turns, or $30 million total, either with pre-scripted mission assignments or new resource request forms. There are no limit to the number of ESF activations in an available turn. Their costs must still be considered in the $10 million per turn and $30 million per game cap. Resources from FEMA distribution centers are available at the designated time on the commodity inventory sheet. For all other resource requests, items not in the distribution centers, the Resource Support Section Chief must draw a Resource Request Sourcing Card. The Resource Request Sourcing Card determines when that resource will be available. The Resource Support Section Chief places the resource request in the appropriate turn bin at the designated number of turns in the future. If the resource will not be available until after the 24th turn, players will not be able to use it in the game. The Resource Support Section Chief may make the request again at the next turn. The Resource Support Section Chief then places the Resource Request Sourcing Card face down in the discard pile. Once all Resource Request Sourcing Cards have been drawn, shuffle the discard pile and begin to draw again. If the team exceeds $10 million per day or $30 million total, they must seek congressional approval for more funds. And they do this by drawing a Resource Request Sourcing Card. The Resource Support Section Chief may allocate or reallocate up to 3 federal staging areas or points of distribution. For example, shift 10 truckloads per day from one point of distribution to another. At the end of the round, the RRCS staff support resets the 10-minute timer at the end of the turn, records the funds expended, and reports the amount of budget available before hitting the $10 million per day or $30 million per budget. The planning section uses the input from the situation input cards and the chief's objectives to develop the regional support plan. Now let's try a game turn. Record rains and early snowmelt have resulted in the Sacramento and American rivers being swollen to record levels. Levee breaches have produced a 500-year flood in Sacramento, California, and the surrounding area, affecting up to 1.5 million people. As members of FEMA Region 9's Regional Response Coordination staff, you must stabilize the disaster within 72 hours. You and your teammates must work together to determine the exact situation and rush personnel and resources to those in need. You are racing against the clock with very little information. As information flows in at an accelerating pace, the team must sort through it, develop objectives and plans, and order resources. Set the time. The Regional Response Coordination Center Chief establishes the following objectives: support search and rescue, mission assign the Army Corps engineers to respond to the levee breaks, establish federal staging areas, resource food and water, gain and maintain situational awareness. The Resource Support Section Chief selects the following 3 resource requests for the first turn. Activate all the emergency support functions. These do not count against the 3 requests per turn limit, but count against the financial limits. Cost, $282,000. Mission assigned the Department of Defense to support search and rescue. In this case, he wrote his own resource request form. This cost $3 million. Mission assigned the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to support the levee repair. This cost $3 million. Mission assigned Emergency Support Section 5 to establish federal staging areas, $450,000. Total expenditures, $6,732,000. The Resource Support Section Chief turns over a resource request sourcing card for each request and determines that they will get search and rescue assets at turn 5 in 15 hours, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers resources at turn 13 in 36 hours, and federal staging area resource requests at turn 9 in 24 hours. The Planning Support Section Chief establishes a planning working room in Next Generation Incident Command System and holds a tactics meeting to talk about trucking and commodities to Travis Air Force Base, Stockton, and Roseville, and then flying them the final leg over the floodwaters. The final regional support plan will be refined and briefed at turn 3. The Situational Awareness Section Chief turns over a card every minute, and the team reacts accordingly. Card 1 states, the Sacramento levee protecting Natomas has been breached in the vicinity of San Juan Road, grid number 10S, FH 253764. The Situational Awareness Section Chief uses Next Generation Incident Command System to plot this hazard. Even though the team may not have final reports, they can use the census tool in Next Generation Incident Command System to estimate the affected population. In this case, the approximately 261,000 people are flooded in Natomas. The Situational Awareness Section Chief continues to draw the following cards every minute. After drawing a card every minute for 10 minutes, at the end of the first turn of 10 minutes, the common operating picture displays the following situation. And at the end of turn 1, each section chief briefs out. The objectives remain. Number 1, search and rescue. Number 2, Army Corps of Engineers repairing levees. Number 3, establishing federal staging areas. Number 4, sourcing food and water. Number 5, gain and maintain situational awareness. Situational assessment. Section Chief briefs 261,000 people affected, unknown fatalities, injuries, and displaced, 0 in shelters, 0 evacuated, estimating 1,325 people needing rescue. The Resource Support Section Chief estimates 1 federal state generator required at this time. Although nothing has moved, he estimates we need 2,000 people, 4 million pounds of ice, 750,000 liters of water, 500,000 meals, 12 Type 1 pods, 500 trucks per day, and 3 C-17 flights per day. The Planning Section Chief intends to break the area up into a north, south, east, and west. He needs 500 trucks per day, 3 C-17s per day. There's unknown logistics and support capabilities in Sacramento at this time. Ground movement will be up I-80 and then up from I-5 from the south. Air movement will be from Travis Air Force Base in Stockton. Rotary airlift over the water. At the end of two 10-minute turns in 20 minutes, this is the situation. Play continues according to the operational tempo for 24 rounds over 4 hours, simulating 72 hours of real time. "72 hours is a fast-paced game. Are you ready?"